If I wanted to stay, I'd have to return to what I once was. And that time, it was my choice. It took a lot of lives. Once I'd done all that, I couldn't just throw a switch and put things back to the way they'd been before. The life Dolly and I had worked so long and hard to make for ourselves was gone forever. But all it had taken was a single backward glance to push us both over to the other side of the line, back to using what had cost us so much to learn, and so much more to leave behind. But even the cost of stepping back across that line hadn't separated us. We were still one. I knew that if I ever slipped, if I ever dropped back into hell, Dolly would follow me, and bring me back, too. She'd done it before. When our paths first crossed, I was a professional soldier. If you prefer, a hired gun, an assassin, or a freedom fighter, a liberator. What I was called depended on who was saying the words. Dolly was the other side of the coin I was paid in. I was paid to take lives. Her mission was to save lives. And she wasn't paid at all. I, a mercenary. She, a nurse, with Médecins Sans Frontières, switching between French and English as smoothly as if both were her native tongues. That first time Dolly came into my life, she healed my wounds. She asked no questions. My skin color alone would have told her that I didn't belong where I'd been found. There weren't any tourists in that zone. Even the missionaries gave it a wide berth. That didn't leave much, and my camo outfit would narrow any guesses down to one. Regardless, Dolly wouldn't have asked my motives. Her team's only way to continue its mission was to maintain its role of pure impartiality. It must always be apolitical, never judgmental. To Médecins Sans Frontières, a gunshot wound was a gunshot wound. A machete slash was a machete slash. They were there to heal the wounds, not aid the cause of the wounded. But even the mosquitoes knew the difference. In Africa, everybody gets malaria sooner or later, but the native-born have a much better chance of coming out the other side of that hideous ague, coming out alive. Darwin ruled that world in all ways. Only survivors can breed. Some genetic resistance to malaria became their native heritage. The extraction of that chunk of metal from my leg in the field hospital had left me woozy, disoriented. So I don't remember much about the evac to Switzerland itself, but the message that I couldn't stay came through clearly. As soon as my wounds were healed enough for me to move under my own power, I was expected to move on. By that time, Dolly was long gone. I asked about her, but all I got in return was blank stares. Another clear message. Whatever we know is ours, not yours, and a man such as you could never be one of us, could never become one of us. Blood washes off a healer's hands, but it forever remains on those of a professional life-taker. As the years passed, I began to believe that Dolly was an apparition I had fever-dreamed. It was easier that way. Even if she had been real, I knew the chances of our paths ever crossing again were too remote to imagine. But even the longest odds aren't the same as absolute zero. Otherwise, all the world's roulette wheels would have stopped spinning long ago. When I saw Dolly walking out of a hospital in San Francisco, I had to shake my head violently and refocus, just to be sure my eyes weren't playing some cruel joke. But this was no mirage in the desert of my life. It was Dolly, and she could not have been more real. I don't know why she'd been inside that hospital, but I knew what had brought me there. And it was no mystical magnetic pull. I was coming into that hospital to do something to a patient. Actually, for a patient, but I knew the law wouldn't see it that way. I called her name. Dolly was all I knew, and she turned to face me. And she remembered. I could see her eyes flash a decision. We didn't have much time then, but Dolly answered my questions as if she knew why I was so desperate for the answers. She even told me her secret. She was finished with the unrelenting parade of hurt, crippled and wounded people. Not just soldiers, gang-raped women.